So good morning or good night, depending on where you are in the world, and welcome to another video of the Shield Dude on a Couch. I'm your host, Hector, and today I got something different for you guys. I'm here with the Metal Tristan. He's a YouTuber that I've been following since 2017. We've been talking music for 7 years now, but this is the first time that we're actually speaking person to person. And I said to him, like, hey, let's just do a video where we chat about like how we got into YouTube, music that got us into metal and rock. So Tristan, thank you for taking some time. How are you, man?
Of course, man. I'm doing good. It's been a long day at work, but it's nice to kind of finish the day off here. I think it's like lunchtime for you. Is that right?
It's lunchtime for me. So this is what I do in my lunch. I talk with people and I eat sometimes, but yeah, it's lunchtime for me. Yeah, at least you are not in Australia. Every time I have to do a video with my friend from Australia, shout out to Chile from Live Listen Erased. The time zones for Australia, and even when I talk with Australian bands, it's hectic. I once had to interview an Australian band. It was 6 a.m. in the morning for me, and it was nighttime for them. So I told them at the beginning, bear with me. I'm kind of slow. I haven't had my coffee yet. But what I do to interview guys. So Tristan, so first, before we get into music that we got to show, like I'm always curious, like because I know you started your YouTube channel, if I'm not mistaken, in 2017, was it?
Yeah, it was 2017. Yeah. I was thinking it was 2016, but yeah, no, it was in 2017. Yeah.
Yeah. So what made you get into YouTube?
I think because so before, as a little bit of like context and stuff, I used to run a little webzine with a friend of mine, really good friend of mine, called The Metalist. And that was kind of like how we sort of started out. We kind of did some like interviews, album reviews, and things like that. And over a while, I think my mate just kind of wasn't really sort of as in it as I was in terms of he used to handle like the HTML, all the like back end sort of stuff of the website, but also interview bands as well. And then I remember, I can't remember. I think it might have been, yeah, I think it was Laura, to be fair. I think it was my wife who was just like, I watched so many of these like like beauty vloggers and things like that. And like there's not actually that many people doing it on YouTube. So why don't you give it a go? And I was like, okay, this is kind of weird. Like, like talking to the camera, like, guys.
You have a cool wife.
Yeah. Yeah, man. Well, she works for Epitaph now, so she's very much kind of like in the music industry as well. But at the time she was working at Nuclear Blast, and that's kind of like how we met. But that's another story. But yeah, so she was kind of like, why don't you try it out? And it was like super awkward in the beginning because I'm sure you've probably had this as well. I still have it. Like, when you're talking to a camera, you're kind of like, hey guys, how's it going? But there's no one there.
You know what
So,
happens to me sometimes? Sometimes I'm like, I'm running out of adjectives of how to describe this music. I'm
yeah,
like, it's
yeah,
bubbly, it's brutal, it's
yeah,
brutal. Like, I don't know how you do it with so many death metal because I review shoegaze, different styles. So it sometimes I find it like it's like hard with the words. So yeah, it's
yeah.
and I remember I think I saw your first review. It was the Havoc, a Havoc album. Yeah.
Oh, damn. Yeah. Okay. So you were like the first. That's the first review I think I ever put out is the Havoc review. I'm pretty sure
Yeah,
because I
but the first time I saw you was yeah, I'm gonna give the backstory. So it was you did the Karak Angren album review. So you were like almost fairly new. And I was in Puerto Rico at the time, and this was September 2017, where two major hurricanes hit Puerto Rico. So for fun, I went through YouTube, but I followed a few YouTubers, but I firstly there was some that were just like everything was negative. They were kind of jerks, and I felt like I'm like I don't know. And then I saw your video. I'm like, this guy is like super nice and proper. And I saw that Karak Angren review. I liked it, and I hit subscribe, and I've been subscribed to your channel since 2017. And back when the hurricane came, that was that was my sort of form of entertainment, watching your channel.
No way, man. That's so cool.
Yeah.
As you know, like it's I think that's the crazy thing about YouTube, isn't it? It's like, for me, it's always just been kind of like I just make some videos, like sat on my bed or whatever. But and you with your couch, like, but it has so much kind of impact to so many other people all over the world. And like, people can see it wherever they are. And it's always just a bit of a trip whenever people kind of say like, oh yeah, like I was watching this, like, when I was going through a bit of a shit time or whatever, and like I discovered some new music. It's always really, really cool, man.
Yeah, and plus it's not easy like reviewing new music every Friday. There's sometimes that I don't feel like it.
Yeah, yeah, man, me too.
So
Sometimes I'm like, I wish I could just kind of like enjoy this album without like thinking about what I'm gonna write about or what I'm gonna say, or you know what I mean?
no, yeah, I totally know what you mean. But I went back when I saw your videos and I saw your habit one, and it's so funny because you look super nervous. And I'm like, oh, and you pick up your phone and you read like the song lyric. I actually I had an old video because in 2010 I did like a few videos in YouTube because there was a friend of mine that had a blog called Section 10,
Mhm.
and I wrote like album reviews there, and I did like a show with him called Rock Century 21, where we talked about like modern bands. So it was like an internet radio show. So
Okay.
I always wanted to not be like it was like my dream to like talk about music, but I also was like thinking, I have an accent. Spanish is my first language, and there's some people that told me, why don't you do like your channel completely in Spanish? But Puerto Rico is not my, it's like number 6 of people that follow me. I'm like, no, I'll have it in English. But I wanted also when I did my channel to be different. I'm like, I can talk to bands from Puerto Rico,
Yeah.
like you talk to a lot of like UK bands.
Yeah, yeah, man. I mean, it's kind of like you say, it kind of I think it puts you on an even footing from the word go. Do you know what I mean? Like it's kind of like even though you guys have never met each other or anything like that, you still have something that's kind of relatable, which I quite like. But with that in mind, I would say probably as much of the people that I interview are probably from the US, to be fair. It's probably neck and neck between the UK and the US, I think.
No, me too. If I have to, like, I've done a lot of interviews because
Yeah.
I prefer doing interviews because for people that watch my channel that don't know, my my actual job is looking at resumes and recruiting people. I've interviewed for 20 plus years, so what I thought when I'm like, I know how to interview people, so I'll just take what I know about like interviewing for stuff, but put it into my passion, which is like bands and music. So it goes
Oh,
well. So the interviews for you, like I don't like at first, like when I first started doing interviews, at first I like wrote a lot of questions and I tried to be like read the question, but now I just I know what I'm gonna talk about, but I like to keep it like a free form chat. For you, how's that process when you interview bands?
I think kind of very, very similar, to be honest, because I think for me, I always try and have like, sort of like key touch points that I want
Yeah,
to put across and things like that. And like, it helps with Zoom as well because you can have like your little your notes on the on the screen and you're not like but
I should put my stuff on Zoom with the I don't do it.
yeah, 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 man. I put mine on like the little notes like just on the sidebar. It's super helpful.
I'll start
But
doing that.
but yeah, so like there's only usually sort of like a couple of prompt sort of questions. And then I've also found in the past that sometimes you can ask a question that's actually quite sort of like not very open-ended. So you might ask the question and that kind of like funnels the conversation into that particular point. Whereas like if you ask something that's a bit more open, there may be an answer that you would have never even expected to come from them. And that's when you get, you know, like the really cool stories and like, you know, and I think also you just have to listen, you know, you have to treat it
Yeah.
like a conversation with someone. And I think, you know, especially when I look back now and like we used to have like a SoundCloud when I was doing the Metalist stuff. So we'd like write a little bit out as sort of like a little excerpt and then we'd have the whole interview on SoundCloud. And I could hear myself, you know, being like, you know, like super, super nervous. And I think the thing is that you have to just relax as well with bands. And I think, you know, they kind of they gel with that. You know what I mean? Like when someone's, I think, a little bit nervous, it can be a little bit awkward. And, you know, it's just, if anything, like you say, with the HR sort of stuff, it's just as much about reading people, I think, as it is about the questions, really. Do you know what I mean?
Oh, no, yeah, it's also like when I'm talking with bands, sometimes I know if the interview will be longer. It just like the vibes, like if they answer questions more shortly, I'll yeah, maybe this won't be like very entertaining. But I've had some. I want to ask you like, what's been like the interview that you have like to pinch yourself? Like, I can't believe I'm actually talking to this person.
Ooh, there's been a couple, to be fair.
Yeah, no, dude, you interviewed some amazing musicians.
I would say the Megadeth one was really cool at Bloodstock because that was quite sort of like out of the blue. Basically, I was at Bloodstock and I think it was like Saturday night, and there was no real reception until I got back to the hotel, and it was at like 1 in the morning or something, and I got this email come through being like, Megadeth's schedule has kind of like opened up. Would you be interested in an interview? I was like, fucking absolutely. You know,
I
like
don't think, was it with Dave?
no, it was with Dave Ellefson and Kiko. So
Okay.
like, you know, being a long time fan of like, you know, the classic like Megadeth lineup. And I really love Kiko's playing. I think his like phrasing is so interesting and what he does in Angra as well. Like, but yeah, so that was really cool. Michael Ackerfeld was probably a big one as well.
I remember that one. Yeah.
That was really cool. Just because he's like very laid back, very chill. Who else was there? Man, I'm trying to think of like some of the interviews that I've done over the years.
It's
I
been
would
a
say
few years
Winston.
now.
Sorry?
It's been a few years.
It has, yeah, it has. There's been a few interviews. I would say maybe Winston from Parkway Drive as well, because that was so much fun. Like he was just such a nice guy, basically. That I was kind of like, wow, this is pretty crazy. Oh, Mike Portnoy as well. That was cool. I interviewed Mike Portnoy and Derek Sherinian for Sons of Apollo when that first came out, and that was really, really cool.
Yeah,
Um,
I would love to talk to Mike Portnoy now and just ask him like, what does he do? So he
yeah,
doesn't get like wrist injuries when he's playing the
yeah,
22
yeah,
minute
exactly.
songs.
What's
But
his
yeah,
like workout routine?
it has to be because it's just too. And I've seen Dream Theater here. I saw Dream Theater with Mike Portnoy in Puerto Rico 2 times.
Oh, no way.
Yeah, there was one that they played that actually there was a little band at that time opening for them. A lot of people didn't know them, called Between the Buried and Me. So Between the Buried and Me opened for Dream Theater in Puerto Rico, I think in 2006. And at that moment, I started to get into Between the Buried and Me, and I saw them when I was living in Florida. There's a place called the Culture Room in Fort Lauderdale, like a really small venue, and they played Colors One in full, and then they played parts from Colors Two because it was on the tour for that album, and they were just
Oh, it was that tour, man.
yeah,
Wow.
it was a no. The only thing I miss about living in Florida is the shows. I saw Steven Wilson in that. He played 2 nights there, and I just went one night because I think 2 nights would be too much. But I saw him, and he played like a 3 hour set. So yeah, no, incredible, amazing experience. So for me, I just checked the other day, and I've done more interviews than album reviews. Like there's like 300 interviews and 285 album reviews. I'm like, wow, I've done a lot of interviews in basically 2 years because this channel has been 2 years
Yeah.
in the making. I started like in December of 2021. I started in December because I'm like, this would be a good month to start because it's like a low, like, so I can get my feet wet.
Yeah.
But yeah, I remember my first videos from YouTube. I took them down from 2010. I was on a blue couch, and I think I should have left them so I could see like the evolution of
Yeah.
the videos.
Sometimes it's cringy, isn't it? Like you do go back and you watch it and you're like, oh my God, how did I think that that was a good idea to put that out? Or like that editing style and things like that. Like, I mean, well, I say that editing style. Laura always says that, like, you know, I haven't really changed my format in like 7 years, and she's not really wrong. You know, it's quite sort
It's
of,
changed a bit. I think
yeah,
well, I think you look more comfortable like doing it now. Like when I watched my first videos, I kind of looked a little bit like nervous,
yeah,
and at first I tried to put like I know there's other YouTubers that do scripts. I know like I do like talking points. I'm like, I know I'm gonna talk about this one, but I don't like doing scripts because when I thought of the channel, I felt like this should be like a guy on a couch just like chatting with people. I didn't want to
yeah.
seem like I'm like reading a format. So so that's how I came up. You told me like, oh, you look chill on a couch. I'm like, that's a good title. Like, and I
No way.
didn't, yeah, I didn't name it like metal because I like I love the 90s. I love other styles. So I wanted to be like open
It's
ended
good.
that way. Yeah.
Yeah. It's a smart thing to do. I honestly somewhat regret the name The Metal Trace because every time I say it, I'm like, oh God. But it's good.
Yeah,
You
I
know,
just imagine when you review Green Day, someone will leave you a comment like, that's not metal.
yeah, exactly. Yeah. Anytime I'm like, ooh, I could, you know, like review, I don't know, Ariana Grande's new album because I've been recently like really getting into like pop stuff, and then I'm like, yeah, I can't do that. But like, I mean, I can. I can. You know, I think with YouTube you can do whatever you want, and everyone's always gonna say, oh, you're this, that, whatever, and like you've
Yeah.
sold out, or you know. But it's more that I just wish I had a bit more of an ambiguous name, like lead on a couch.
Yeah, well, I put everyone knows that I'm named Hector, but I think the YouTuber that gets the best comments hands down is the Metal Meltdown. Like with
Yeah,
his
man.
drinking game of his comments, I'm like, I get some comments here and there, but nothing like what he's gotten. Like at first when I started, some of the comments like I'm like, oh my God, like if they they would get to me, but not anymore.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's interesting. I've gotten like comments through like oh, you Spanish guy and stuff. But yeah, it comes with the game. So so yeah, no, I think your channel like you have almost like the same format, and now you're doing like the shorter format.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking like this must be like hell for Tris because like you usually like you like to explain things in detail. I'm like, he must be clocking himself like to be fast. And are you doing more editing because you're doing shorter reviews now?
Yes. Yes, I am literally like doing 30-second bursts, and it is so hard because it's kind of fun though, because it's kind of like a new challenge of like trying to be as descriptive and detailed as possible, but also be as succinct as possible and kind of like distill all that information, you know, to like 3.5 minutes. That's kind of like my goal. But, you know, it kind of keeps creeping into like 4.5 minutes. But yeah, like I think I don't know. I was just kind of like, you know, I've been looking at, you know, people watching the videos and things like that. And also I think, you know, people's attention span is very different nowadays. Um, but it's tricky. I think there isn't really sort of like a right or wrong answer with YouTube because sometimes people just like to watch super long content and some people like shorter content. So I was just kind of like, well, I'll see how this goes and see if I can keep up like not basically explaining every single minute detail of why I think this is a great album. But
Yeah, and
yeah,
sometimes I think doing less, and it's more because sometimes, especially that happens with me with prog albums. If you make one tiny mistake, oh, people will let you know.
yeah, yeah, man. You'll never be forgiven, or
You'll
like,
never be
you know,
forgiven. For example, later on today, I'm going to do the Dune album review because we both interviewed Victor, and
yeah, man. I
it's a
saw your
great
interview as well. It was really cool, man.
it's a great album, but it's not like, especially the subject matter, that it's not easy explaining it without
No.
getting something confused. So you like go to a little detail, but yeah, I read like at first I didn't want to do shorts, but shorts is a great way to get people in
Oh,
to
really?
to get, yeah, to get at least with me, like I get people in with the shorts. So pop music, I've always loved like pop music. I haven't had anything against pop music. Actually, last year I did review Bad Bunny's record for the channel. Because I'm like, I'm Puerto Rico, I can do it. I can do that. I thought about doing Taylor Swift's record, but I'm like, no, I don't want to listen to 2 hours of her like bitching about her ex-boyfriend. Like, no, there's no way. So yeah, take me back when you first started getting into rock and music. Like, what bands got you into music, man?
Um, so I guess it was kind of a variety of things, really. One of the things I think I can remember the earliest was probably, all of the like new metal kind of wave of stuff. So it was kind of Linkin Park, Hybrid Theory. I remember we used to have like at school that I went to, it was like a primary thing, and they would have like a listening hour or whatever it was at the end of the week. And I remember my primary teacher one week, like she brought in Linkin Park, Hybrid Theory, and we were listening to it, and I was like, this is nuts. Like, and in hindsight, now I'm like, wow, my teacher was like so much cooler because she was a metalhead.
Yeah, I'm
um,
like my teacher. I'll talk about my school experience once you finish.
but yeah, so yeah, it kind of sort of like it started from there, I think. And then yeah, it was kind of like I was into skateboarding as well. So I think that kind of like went a little bit hand in hand, like Sum 41, Green Day, things like that. Blink 182 was actually a really, really big one. So a lot of like, like American Pie rock, that sort of thing. And then slowly but surely, I think when I started to get into guitar, I was like 16, and that was like Metallica, Megadeth, Anthrax, like the as fast as I could play guitar possible. And then I remember there was one particular evening where I was listening to it was back when I had like an MP3 player, the one with like the USB that you actually put into
Oh,
the
I remember. I
yeah,
remember those. I had a
ancient
CD player.
technology. But I was listening to a Metal Hammer like cover mount that those CDs that they would give that I'd put on the MP3 player, and it was Ghost of Perdition by Opeth, and I'd only heard like those 8 first seconds, and I was like, oh, this is interesting, and it was like pitch black winter, and then I just heard the Ghost of, and I was like, what is this? This is awesome. And then it was like the longer the song went on, the more I was like, wow, this is like really special. Like I've never heard anything like that. And I think that's probably one of the reasons I think Opeth are still such a kind of like legendary band for me. Um, but yeah, it all kind of started off with like skateboarding and kind of like new metal. There was like Papa Roach in there as well, Limp Bizkit, like Significant Other, Chocolate Starfish, all that sort of stuff. So I'm very much kind of like a product of the of the time that I was, kind of growing up and stuff. But yeah, and then I guess the heavier sort of things, really like, the Cannibal Corpses, Nile, and things like that, that started coming when I was like 18, 19. But it was all kind of because of guitar, really, because I wanted to be able to play guitar solos and, like melodies and riffs. And Killswitch Engage was another one, actually. And Avenged Sevenfold, those like dueling guitars. That was really, really fun. And then yeah, it's just kind of like slowly but surely kind of gotten a bit more extreme. And like I also think that people have kind of different kind of stages of what they really like. Like, you
Yeah,
know,
I think so too.
I'm a firm believer in like every person when they hit like 30 decides to like post metal, and like Neurosis is the best band ever, or like, you know, The Ocean and stuff like that. So I'm very much into that. Um
I
but
just saw
actually,
the Ocean a few weeks ago.
oh no way, really?
Yeah, they played Puerto Rico for a second time, and I didn't see them the first time because I was still living in Florida.
Oh no
And
way.
yeah, and it was cool. You know, they're a great, amazing live band. You know, they played with some band here for Puerto Rico that they're called Moths, which I think I've talked to you about them because they're great. Yeah,
Yeah,
they're
yeah,
a
yeah, man.
great like doomier like type of band. So yeah, it's an interesting thing that you mentioned because about age, because I always there's sometimes when I listen to music and it takes me back to when I listened to it, and I don't know about you, but sometimes I remember where I bought it.
100% all the time. Like almost every album, I can remember exactly where I was, where I bought it. And like, I think the funniest one was when I was going into a CD shop, because it was before I kind of collected records and stuff. Like I used to have CDs and things.
Let's be clear, people in the this is vinyl is something of the last years because in I grew up in the 90s and no one had my parents had the vinyl and they didn't play it. So I had tons of CDs. I think I had like 500 or more CDs.
Yeah.
My parents threw them all in the garbage when I moved. So I'm like, but in the 90s, it was all about the CDs.
Yeah, 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 100%, man. And like I always used to remember they would have like, you know, at the like the till where you would, you know, pay for your record and stuff, you would have like a little listening post. And I found, what did I was looking for Metallica, but I found Megadeth. That was it. Because I was like, after I found out the history, I was like, oh, how weird. And it was Rust in Peace, that album, and I was just like, wow, this is like one of the best things I've ever heard, especially because I'd just gotten into guitar. And that was like for a really long time, like the barometer of like what I wanted to play. I was like, okay, if I can nail Holy Wars at least like one time on guitar, then I'm good. You know, like that's good enough. And like it took a long time. It took about a year and a half of like really trying to practice different things, and then I'd kind of attempt it and then it wouldn't work, and then I'd attempt it again, but I'd work bits of it, and then I was like, one time I actually nailed the whole song, and I was just like, oh, this is so sick. But yeah,
Yeah.
it's all part of that sort of, you know, the C I think CD culture as well, you know, like you'd have a lot of friends who would just be kind of like, oh yeah, man, listen to this CD, and they give you like a big fat walk, not Walkman, but like, you know, like the wallet and stuff, and they'd be like,
I had
oh
a binder that I used to have in my car, and people say it's easier now with the streaming. I I remember being in the car and taking sometimes 5 minutes on deciding which CD I wanted to listen for this 5 minute drive. I'm like, it has to be perfect. It has to
yeah,
be like, for example, if I was going on a date, no Iron Maiden. No Iron Maiden or Dream Theater or the date
yeah,
go wrong. That's where you put your air supply and you put your romantic stuff.
yeah.
I think I even had a Backstreet Boy CDs, just in case, just in
Just
handy.
thinking.
But yeah, there's like when I first got into this type of music, like in the 80s, I would listen to what my parents would play in the car. So growing up in Puerto Rico, it was a mixture of like music from Puerto Rico, but my I got some actually some vinyl that my mom gave to me. I have I think an original like one of the first pressings of Thriller. So I have that. I'm like, oh, I have do you want it? I'm like, yes, give it to me. So I have that one. I cleaned it and I listened to it once. And my grandfather had like flamenco music and a lot of
Oh
stuff.
wow,
So I
that's
kept
cool.
those the vinyl from him as well.
Hmm.
But when I first got like the first albums that I thought I bought 4 albums. The first band that I listened that got me into metal was Metallica. There was a metalhead. Like in my classroom, there were like three people that listened to rock or something. The
Yeah.
other people didn't listen to that, and he put a video for that. And at first, I didn't like it. I thought like, that's too much noise. What is that? But then I was intrigued, and I bought the Black album. And the first three albums I bought was the Black album. But I'm not gonna show the Black album. Master of Puppets, because the Black album is just black, it's boring. But the other two albums I bought that I rebought on vinyl, I bought Nevermind and Pearl Jam 10, which to me still are classics. And obviously then I got into Black Sabbath, but the beginning, the other album that I bought, I don't have it because it was Saigon Kick the Lizard, and I don't want to buy that on vinyl. I don't know if you remember that band.
I don't think I've ever heard of the band. No. What kind of music was it?
They were like they were lumped in like with the glam hair metal, but they were more like a mixture of Skid Row type of like meets extreme Guns N' Roses. They had a huge hit called Love Is on the Way, which was like a ballad, because I'm showing my age. I'm a little bit older than you, so I got really into music like at the beginning of the 90s. That you're more like in the new metal, like the second half of the 90s, because the 90s, I rate the 90s like it was grunge. 90 to 94 is like grunge. Then 95, 94 to 96 is more like the Britpop feel. And then 97 to 99, new metal.
Yeah,
that's how I think of the 90s. So yeah, like any album that you bought like back in the day that you're like, oh, I can't believe I bought this.
I'm trying to think of like what I remember. My first ever like thing that I bought, you know, like a single album, whatever, was Robbie Williams's "Let Me Entertain You," which I actually defend as a very, very good song, because it's also quite like rocky, actually, when you think about it.
Yeah, I remember actually Robbie Williams in this, I don't know why, in over here in the States or Puerto Rico, like he never, because I remember he didn't get as huge as at that moment as other pop stars like Ricky Martin or Ricky Iglesias. And maybe I think because he had like, when I saw him, he had like an Elton John type of like feel to his music, at least to me.
Yeah, there's a really interesting documentary actually that's just, well, not just come out, it came out like last year, but it's a really, really good documentary about Robbie Williams. And you know, it kind of sort of talks about some of the sort of like headlines that were written about him, and kind of like how that sort of affected him in terms of like a performance and like anxiety sort of thing. And I think, you know, he's always been a bit of a cheap shot for a lot of people, and I feel really like I do feel bad for him, because you know, he's like, I think he's written some brilliant songs over the years, and that's why I will still defend Robbie Williams for forever. But like, on the really embarrassing side of things, I bought a Buffy the Vampire Slayer soundtrack. That was probably quite embarrassing. And also Billie Piper's album as well. That was I think I must have been like 7 or 8, and like S Club 7 and all that sort of stuff. This was before metal was introduced.
Oh, yeah. I remember I bought the Aqua album, so and it's funny. I remember driving, listening to the Aqua album, and I had the CD next to me, and there was like a little girl in the car, and she had the same CD, and she showed it to me. I'm like, oh my God. I'm like, I'm listening to what this 4-year-old wants to listen to. So yeah, that was very embarrassing. But I remember like buying the first Hootie and the Blowfish, and my mother liked it. So I thought, if my mother likes it, it's not cool. So I gave that CD to her. She still listens to it. She's like, oh, it's still a great album. And now I'm thinking of it, I'm like, yeah, it's not a bad album. It's a good rock album. So so going on, like, what was your like first show that you went to?
Ooh, first show. It was either it might have been Dragon Force on, I think it was the Inhuman Rampage tour. It was when like Through Fire and Flames was like massive.
Oh, I remember.
And then It could have been Green Day though. It was around the same sort of time because I went to the Milton Keynes Bowl, Green Day. You know, they did the Bullet in a Bible thing that it was like a filmed thing. I can't remember who played though. I want to say it was like Jimmy Eat World and Taking Back Sunday as well. It was a really good lineup, and Green Day had only just released American Idiot as well, so
Long
they
time ago.
played a lot of that. So it was a hell of a good show. Um, but I'm trying to think of like if there was anything else mega embarrassing that I went to before that. I don't think there was, like I think Dragon Force was the first one that I went to, and it was awesome. I absolutely loved it. Like because I'd never been to a gig before, I was like, "Whoa, what?" And it was at the Astoria as well, so it was like a legendary venue. Um, and it was just, yeah, like the atmosphere was just like, what's this? And I was like, I'm not the tallest guy as it is, but like when I was younger, I was like really, really small, and I could like just about sort of see and like hear everything that was going on. But yeah, it was really, really cool, man. And then the Green Day one was a little bit more chill, it was like on a hill and we were a little bit further back, and it was kind of like a sort of, like mid-afternoon, and then it went to evening. So it wasn't quite as like intense as like Dragon Force.
But I can identify with the well, I'm like a normal stature, but a few years in 2016, I went to the Infernus Music Fest. I was in Oslo by just by chance, and that weekend that I went there, it was the Infernus Music Festival. I'm like, I gotta go. There was like Exodus playing, but I never felt as short in my life as there because I'm there standing in the Viking Arena. I think Vulcan Arena is the name in Oslo, and everyone's like 6'5" tall, and I'm like, I felt so short. I'm like, I couldn't like people looked at me like I was a hobbit or something.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
and
Do you need to
I'm like for Puerto Rico, I'm like normal size, but yeah, people
Yeah.
look tall. So yeah, I can tell like that's horrible when you go to a show. I'm like I can hardly see because people are so damn tall here. But yeah, it was a great experience. So I've lost count. I'm sure you've been to more shows than me, but but the first show I went to was in 1993. I saw Aerosmith on the Get a Grip tour here in Puerto Rico. It was in a outside stadium, and I was like 1993. I was like 15 years old, and so my mother didn't like that music, so her brother did. So like my uncle took
Mhm.
me, my cousin, who's his son, and my a friend of mine to see that concert. But he basically like left us there and went to do some shady stuff. So so I remember just being there and being like Steven Tyler came through the public, so we're like, oh my god, there he is, and it was great. But I remember being at a concert, being like excited but scared too because there were people smoking pot.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah,
there were some lesbians on the side of me, so I was seeing stuff that I'm like, oh my god, is this what a concert is like? So that
yeah.
was my first foray into like rock concert, and I
Hmm.
still I think that to this day that's why I still like Aerosmith because I remember that concert so vividly. So man, so what's next for your YouTube channel? Like anything new that you're working on, that new segment or everything?
I don't know, man. Like there's a couple of things that I do want to kind of, I guess kind of bring back a little bit. Like the problem is a lot of the time is time,
Mm.
literally just that. I'm so busy with work and everything like that that it takes up a lot of time. But I really liked doing the Apocalyptic Anniversary series when I was with Metal Sucks. That was really, really fun. And I kind of brought that back, but it's kind of like a little bit sporadic, and I need to kind of, get back on that. But I'd like to do like, maybe rankings of albums. I think that could be kind of cool. Where you go like through the whole discography and all that sort of thing.
I would love to go to your channel and do a ranking with you.
Yeah, man, that'd be sick.
Yeah, that'd be
Like
cool.
this is the thing. There's a couple of things that I do really want to do, and like I had this thing. I did it once with Mastodon, which I called it a backtrackalog, where it was like, you go basically through the catalog of the band and then choose, like I just talk about my favorite track of each record. But the problem is that I'm so picky that I can never I can never settle on like one particular track because I'm like, oh well, that song's really good, but it doesn't really like feel the whole album or something. And then I just kind of like get caught up in my head. So I think that's another thing, where I'm kind of like, okay, let's try and do shorter videos. We'll do like, like don't put as much emphasis on it as like, it's the most important thing in the world because it's not, it's just a bit of fun. But then, obviously I want to continue with all the interviews and stuff. I'd probably say interviews are like my favorite part of
That's my favorite thing to do, the interviews and well, I'm enjoying the Is It That Bad series, but I can totally see why you can't do that series. I leave it to the people who, to other friends of mine, but it's totally fun to do it. But yeah, I like talking with bands. For me, my aha moment in interviews was just like a month ago. I got like an email for Armored Saint. So first I was gonna interview Joey Vera, but the day before I got the email that they said, oh, it's gonna be with John Bush. I'm like, oh my God. I was like, I'm like, that's the biggest name. I was like awesome. And I don't know if you saw that interview, but it was funny because I told him, Anthrax played Puerto Rico with him in 2003 for a Halloween.
mhm.
But at that moment, I had this girlfriend, and there was like a wedding or something, and I couldn't go to the concert. And I'm like, oh my God, I had to tell him in the interview. He was like, dude, I'm like, I know, man, I know. I was like, if I knew that 20 years after I would be speaking to you, I would go back in time, leave that ex-girlfriend, and just have gone to the concert, which is what I really wanted to do. So, and I remember I had that ex-girlfriend as a friend, and I told her, because of you, I missed that concert. And she's like, oh, but what was more important at the time? I'm like the concert. But yeah, no, it was like a aha moment that I had to pinch myself. But
Yeah,
I
yeah,
still,
yeah.
I have a bucket list of people that I want to interview. So, what's your like top three people that you haven't interviewed yet that would be like a dream come true?
Oh man. Well, like very big fish would be Metallica, um, Tool, who else? Do you know what? I don't think I've ever interviewed Mastodon. Mastodon would be really cool.
That would be a
Just
cool. That would be a cool interview. Yeah.
yeah, because like I've met the guys a couple of times, just at like various gigs and whatever. But I've never actually interviewed them. That would be cool. Meshuggah would be really cool as well. I've never interviewed them. Because at the time, I think it was just as Immutable was coming out, I was kind of like, I know it was like just as I was leaving the company that was working on it, so I wasn't able to work on it. But who else was there? I'm trying to think. I'm like mentally going through all of my like albums basically going through all of this.
Yeah.
What? Who else is there?
Yeah. It's a tough question. I know which ones I would. Metallica, and if I had Metallica, it would have to be James or Lars.
Yeah, I think it would be James for me.
Yeah. Yeah, it would,
Yeah.
I don't know. It would be interesting to talk about Lars because I would like to talk about like Napster and
Yeah.
he got a lot of flack for that, but when you think about it, he was right.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. He was just ahead of the time,
Yeah,
right?
he
Like,
knew what was going to happen, and now people are like, "Oh, but well, he was right. He had a point."
yeah, 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 man, for sure. I agree 100%. And like sometimes, but that's the thing, isn't it? With streaming services and things like that, like often people aren't prepared for the level of disruption that they have to the way that things, operate. And I think, music can be quite sort of hard to keep up at times, well, especially kind of like rock and metal, really. I think, some of the more popular sort of stuff is way more across it than the rock and metal. There's kind of like a little bit more like Luddite-y. But that's kind of the charm of it for me, to be fair. But I'm trying to think of who else I would like to interview.
Yeah. Who in Tool? Would it be with Maynard?
Do you know what? I mean, I would say yes to anyone.
Oh yeah.
Uh, but
I love to talk wine with him.
yeah, that would be really cool, man.
Yeah.
I think either Maynard or maybe Danny Carey would be really cool. I mean, I'd love to speak to Adam, because I think he's probably my favorite guitarist ever, just because of the way he plays, and like his feel is just like nothing else. Like I've played a million Tool songs, like
Oh, and I remember talking with you where that you listened to Fear Inoculum like on a trip that you did to California. So you're listening to that going through the desert, and I drove through those desert as well. I'm like, that must have been a very trippy experience, like listening to Fear Inoculum while going through that drive.
yeah, man, it was nuts. It was on our honeymoon.
Yeah.
And I remember it came out, I want to say it came out on like the 30th of August or something. And we were kind of like midway through our trip. And then I really wanted to listen to it, but obviously it's like a super, super long album. So I was like, well, I want to wait until kind of like the right place and the right time. And also, like, I don't know if you're like this as well, but I find, listening to music in the car can be kind of like, if you're kind of doing that first listen and you really, really want to appreciate everything, you can't really hear it in the car. But
Especially when you have kids, man. Sometimes I try to listen to an album and they're like, "Oh, put Bluey." I'm like,
so you understand the Fibonacci sequence?
no,
Yeah.
no. Oh, yeah. Well, I have a video of my daughter when she was like really young. I'm like, "What's your favorite band?" And she's like, "Tool."
No way.
Yeah, well, she didn't know what she was saying. I just
I was
made her
going to
say
say,
Tool.
you raised her right.
She's like Tool, but no. But now she, I don't think she's impressed. But so for me, like like the top, I would love to speak with James from Metallica. That would be awesome.
Yeah.
Like I saw an interview that he did with oh my God, what's the name? Joe Rogan, and he
Oh, yeah.
talked about bees for 30 minutes. And I'm like, wow, he knows a lot about bees. I'm like, it was very interesting. Dave Grohl, I would love to speak with Dave Grohl.
Yeah. Good shout. Good shout.
Yeah, no, it would be awesome. Like just go through all the Nirvana history, all the music. He's been in so many things that it would be like so interesting. I even read his book. And
Mhm.
everyone knows that I love Deftones, so I would love to speak with Chino. With Stephen, it would be interesting, but I think Chino. I would love to speak with Chino Moreno
Yeah.
because I just think it's so cool. But yeah, those are like like the dream interviews that I would love to like top to do
Yeah.
sometime. Yeah.
That's a good, I think Avenged Sevenfold, actually, thinking about it, I would
Oh,
really
that would
love
be a
to
good one.
speak to them, like M Shadows or
Yeah.
Sinister Gates, and especially after that album
Yeah, actually,
last
you
year.
and me, we gave that album great review. Like the last album, people were complaining. I thought the last album was pure brilliance. There was like a Frank Zappa thing to the album. I'm like, this is as much prog as prog is. Like,
Yeah.
uh, I, it's an album that I was blown away. I thought I was gonna hate it, and I was blown away by it.
Yeah, I really didn't know, especially because I'd read, like I'd read the stuff in like Metal Hammer and kind of like the main big reviews, and then I think I got my promo copy like maybe, I don't know, a month out or something like that. And I was kind of like, okay, well, I've got a little bit of context, but not that much. So when I dove into it, I was like, whoa, this doesn't even scratch the surface of like what's going on here. It's the craziest thing. And I think, from so many different standpoints, from a production standpoint, from a songwriting standpoint, from the fact that they're melding all these different genres together. And, I think a lot of people like to kind of hate on that sort of thing because, they're just kind of like, oh, well, it just sounds like a mishmash of loads of stuff, and it just sounds like Mr. Bungle, and yeah,
Hmm.
fair. But like, I think, for a band that is as big as Avenged Sevenfold, who can like easily play festivals, like I think that's one of the most bold things and one of the most creative things you can do, right? Rather than just writing the same album.
Yeah. So, man, before I let you go, because we've been talking here almost an hour, and I will keep talking, but people will be like, "Oh my God, they did like a 3 hour video of them talking."
That's for the
Like
next part. That's
that
part two,
will
man.
be part two. So, any upcoming releases that you're looking forward to this year?
Oh yeah, man, loads.
Yeah, yeah,
So yeah, Gatecreeper, Dark Superstition. Really, really looking forward to that. Alcest, Les Flammes de. I can't remember what it is.
yeah.
It's a French.
Alcest. That's a
Yeah.
band that played in Puerto Rico a few years ago, and I didn't know who they were. And I see them, I'm like, damn it. I couldn't,
Oh
because
no.
they had almost no promo. They played like in a small club. I didn't know who they were. And I'm like looking at like, no, I should have gone. But I didn't know who they were at the time.
I hate that. When you kind of like you fall in love with a band and then you're like,
And
oh,
then they break up.
yeah, or yeah, or like yeah. Or like the worst is when you see them, but you don't appreciate what it is because you don't really like know them, and then afterwards, like literally, like a month later, you're like, oh my God, I saw them, but like I didn't appreciate it. I'm
Yeah,
like,
I think I saw I in 1998 I saw a Godsmack concert, uh, and I think one of the bands that opened was Chevelle, and I didn't know them at the time, and now I love Chevelle. I'm like, did they open? But I'm not sure if because there was like a circus and stuff. But yeah, yeah, those are good picks. I'm looking for. It hasn't been. There's no like concrete news yet, but apparently there will be a new Deftones record this year. So
oh, cool.
and no people is not it's not already my album of the year because people will be like it's already your album of the year.
Yeah,
Like no, I
it
don't.
totally is.
I, like well, there's some I made a sometimes I made like a top tens. For example, in 2018, I put the Architects album as my number one. And now I'm thinking I should have put Alice in Chains, Rainy or Fog, because I still listen to the album more than that
Yeah.
Architect. So I'm like, that should have been my number one.
But then sometimes I find that sometimes I think, whenever I look at my like Laura takes the piss out of me all the time because she's like, oh, I think it might be your album of the year. And it's like every record that I get through the post. But
It's good that your wife has your same taste in music because when I was married, she didn't give a crap of what I'm like, go listen to whatever you
yeah,
you,
man.
you
It's
listen to.
it is absolutely important. But it's I think for me, what I always have as like, the reason like my reasoning for having an album of the year is it an album that like, really kind of like touched something in me? And is it something that I think is like pushing things forward? Like, is it something that doesn't necessarily sound like many other sort of bands? Like, for example, Rivers of Nihil, The Work, that was one of them. Imperial Triumphant,
Well,
Spirit of
last year I'm
Exile,
trying to remember what was your album of the year. I think
Sleep
Avenged
Token,
Sevenfold. What? It
Sleep
was
Token.
it was Sleep Token. And Sleep Token was like my number 3 or 4. Yeah, it was in my top five. I remember my number one because it was Foo Fighters. Because that album to me was great because I hated their previous album. So I was like, this was a redeeming album. But yeah, Sleep Token. Yeah, I remember that. Yeah, that's a good album.
Yeah, man. But that's what I mean. It's pushing things forward, and that's what I think is so important. Like to really like have something that should be an album of the year is something that will be remembered. So like, I wouldn't beat yourself up too much about having Architects because at the time you probably loved it, right?
Oh
Like,
no, I still think it's a great record, but yeah, like I'm more of I'm very much a '90s guy.
yeah,
Like,
yeah.
like
You
that's
are for sure.
like yeah, I couldn't name my channel the '90s guy, even though I talk about new music. I'm like he's the '90s guy. Like
Yeah,
he loves all
yeah.
things, all
That's
usually
like
all,
That's in like brackets, you know, next to your name, the 90s guy.
The 90s guy. That could have been another, but that would have been limiting too, because no, I want to talk about newer stuff too. So,
Yeah.
Tris, like, I'll put the link for people who wanna, subscribe to your channel. I know that you're almost at the 8K subscribers.
Yeah,
Uh,
man.
yeah, it's crazy. My channel has been growing a lot too. So yeah, it's sometimes I can't believe, yeah, so many people subscribe. So
It's really
people,
cool, man. It's so great to see how big your channel's getting and how quick it is getting. So, you know, like all power to you, dude. Like it's, you know, you're putting out content all the time and like every
with
day
two
when I'm on
kids.
Instagram. Yeah, yeah. It's amazing, man. It's really cool. And yeah, like you said, for 2 years, like you're doing incredibly well. So you should be
Yeah.
really, really stoked, man.
Yeah, I should put, I posted, I once had a blooper of when I was doing the Ghost Impera album review, and my daughter, I'm like talking about it, and my daughter goes like this with the hand. And she held the album and she's like, whatever. But it's fun. But they actually, my kids know that I'm on YouTube. They're like, oh yeah. And my daughter's like, yeah, you interview bands. And
No
she's
way.
like, oh, do you like, and sometimes she asks like, what is a band? But yeah, no, it's fun. So people, if you haven't seen the Metal Trees channel, it's a great channel. He does a lot of interviews, metal reviews. I learned a lot about death metal from him. I think there was a time that I left you comments like, how many albums does it, how many metal albums does it take to satisfy Tris?
Yeah.
Not enough. Like
The
there's
answer is none. Just
none, because like
enough
you're
ever.
the death metal guy. And so subscribe to his channel. And if you haven't subscribed to my channel, I have more content and interviews on the way. So
Do it.
Tristan, it's been awesome to finally speak to you face to face and virtually at least. I plan to go to London sometime, and we'll have to have like a beer or something,
Yeah,
and,
man.
and chat music in person. So people, until next time, this is Hector, the Shield Dude on a couch, and I'll see you right here on the couch. Thank you and goodbye.